When James came home that evening, his face was clouded with worry as he broke the news of his demotion. I nearly dropped my cup of tea in surprise. We had been bracing ourselves for the impact of his company's downturn and the upcoming restructuring, but I never imagined it would affect us so personally. As his wife, I knew my support was needed now more than ever during this tough time. It's just bad luck, I reassured him, offering a weak smile to lighten the mood. Times are tough, but I'm still working, so we'll be okay. I'm Anna, 46 years old, and I work full-time in a back office. I live with James, who is 4 years older than me, our high school sophomore daughter, Stephanie, and my 70-year-old mother-in-law, Linda. Although Linda and I occasionally clash, we rarely interact, since I spend most of my day at work. I choose not to let her behavior bother me too much. To Stephanie, I explained, "Your dad's upset about his job, but let's try to keep things normal for him." However, James began to open up about his frustrations more frequently, often directing his anger at those he trusted most, including me. The next day, while I was cleaning the hallway on my day off, James walked by and made a cutting remark. "You've put on some weight since we got married, haven't you?" he said, his tone sharp. I paused, trying to stay calm. "Well, I am 46, and it's normal to gain weight around menopause," I replied, noting that my recent health checkup had shown I was within a healthy range. But his next words stung deeply. "Forget the health checkup. You look unsightly, and it's embarrassing," he snapped. "You're just ugly." Without waiting for my response, he retreated to his room. I stood there, stunned, my side instinctively pinched between my fingers. Yes, I could feel a slight bulge around my waist, but his harsh words felt like a piercing arrow. I was overwhelmed by the intensity of his criticism. It hurt more than I could explain, coming from someone I had supported so fully. I had forgotten I was holding the window squeegee in my hand, and it slipped from my grasp, clattering loudly on the hallway floor. From that moment on, James's behavior toward me grew increasingly distant and harsh. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law, who had overheard our argument, decided it was her place to intervene, and the tension in the house escalated. One day, while carrying a laundry basket up the stairs, I found her waiting at the top, blocking my way. With a disapproving sigh, she commented, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other more easily on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here, blocked by your size." At dinner that evening, as I served chicken tenders, she pointedly remarked, "Isn't this the kind of food that's contributing to your weight gain?" Before I could respond, she snatched my plate away, insisting, "Only the non-overweight family members should eat. According to my gynecologist, it's normal to gain or lose weight after middle age," yet my mother-in-law, slender as a dried-up tree, seemed oblivious to these natural changes and continued her relentless taunts. Despite growing accustomed to her irritating remarks, what truly pained me was the shift in James's attitude. Since the incident, James stopped talking to me altogether. He offered no gratitude, no compliments, not even during meals I had carefully prepared. He ate in silence, then left the table without a word. Even our shared spaces, like the bathroom and bedroom, felt isolating, as he came and went without acknowledging my presence, turning his back to me each night to bury himself in his smartphone. I felt invisible. One night, summoning the courage to confront him, I asked in a soft voice, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was chillingly indifferent. "Not really. I just prefer not to engage much at home," he said coldly. Then, more harshly, he added, "I don't want to be associated with someone in the family who's this overweight. If you really care about me, you'll lose some weight." His words were disheartening. Despite my daily 1.5-mile walk to commute, his lack of understanding and empathy weighed heavily on me. Age was bringing inevitable changes, but his coldness felt like an unbridgeable gap between us. I had been trying my best to manage my weight, especially considering the typical gains that come with age. Yet to James, it was as if my efforts didn't matter. "If you're not seeing results, you might as well not be trying," he snapped. "Don't speak to me anymore." From that point on, he completely shut me out, refusing to acknowledge my existence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law continued her relentless jabs about my diet. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice appeared on the table, she scrutinized my choices, asking, "Are you supposed to eat that? Do you realize what you're doing to yourself?" I had hoped things would get better, but the strain between us only deepened. Eventually, I found myself limited to eating only salads and boiled vegetables, while James sat across from me, silently pushing his food around, his chopsticks moving mechanically. The atmosphere in our home had grown so cold and distant that it felt like our marriage was slowly falling apart. In quiet moments, I found myself packing a few belongings, wondering if it was time to leave. If this was how James chose to treat me, maybe walking away was the only way to reclaim my dignity. When I confided in my daughter, Stephanie, she immediately offered her unwavering support. "I understand, Mom," she said, her voice full of empathy. "It's hard to watch Dad and Grandma constantly pick on you. I'll go with you. We can live with Grandma and Grandpa, and I can still finish high school there." Her words were a comfort, and I felt a flicker of relief. Perhaps leaving wasn't as impossible as it seemed. Just as I was bracing myself for what I thought would be the end, James approached me with an unexpected smile, suggesting we share a drink together. "Tomorrow's the first day of my demotion," he said, his tone attempting to sound light-hearted. "Let's have a drink, just this once." He even suggested making mimosas for dinner, a gesture that seemed out of place after everything that had happened. It had been the first time he had spoken to me directly since revealing his demotion. As he placed the drinks on the table, I couldn't shake the oddness of the situation. His behavior felt forced, as if he were trying too hard to pretend that things were normal between us. He turned his back to grab the TV remote, and I seized the opportunity to discreetly sniff the drink he had poured for me. The faint but unmistakable scent of something familiar from my own cooking struck me. It was the sharp, acrid scent of vinegar. Anger flared within me. How could he think I wouldn't recognize this? How could he be so cruel, so thoughtless, to serve me this? I had reached my breaking point. Between my mother-in-law's constant jabs and James's prolonged neglect, I could no longer bear the weight of it all. It was time for change, a drastic one, for my own well-being and, more importantly, for Stephanie's future. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "James, could you please fetch the Bauer cheese from the fridge?" I asked, my voice calm and polite, masking the storm that raged within me. "It's from the local dairy farm and it's delicious. It'll be nice for family time." My tone was hopeful, as though this simple request could somehow restore a sense of normalcy to our fractured household. As he headed to the fridge, I took the chance to switch my glass with the one on the seat next to me, the one meant for Linda. When James returned with the cheese, I brightly announced, "Now that we have our snacks, I'll go call Stephanie and Linda. Dinner's ready." My voice rang out through the house, and soon, my mother-in-law and daughter joined us at the table. Tonight's dinner was a departure from the usual chicken noodle soup, Beaufort cheese, and the swapped mimosa, with Stephanie opting for juice. The tension in the room hung thick as we began to eat. "Let's dig in," Stephanie said, trying to break the silence. I took a sip of the drink, noting how intently James was watching me, his smile strained. "Yeah, it's quite good," I said, deliberately loud enough for him to hear. He muttered a response, but I ignored him, focusing instead on my salad. I took another sip of the mimosa, my patience thinning. Suddenly, Linda let out a startled scream, spitting a stream of red liquid onto her plate. It looked like something out of a horror movie. "Wait, Grandma, what happened?" Stephanie exclaimed, jumping to her feet in alarm as some of the liquid splashed onto her salad. "Did you choke? Are you okay?" She quickly grabbed a towel and handed it to Linda, who was wiping her mouth in shock. "What is this, Grandma?" Stephanie asked, her concern growing. "Your mouth, it's like a spicy cobra." Linda, still sputtering, shot a glare at me. "He put it in my drink," she shouted, trying to lunge toward me. But I calmly brushed her hand aside. "It wasn't me. James made the drinks," I replied, pointing the blame squarely at him. The shock on Linda's face was evident. "What?" she screeched, her lips still stained from the sauce. She turned to glare at James, who was visibly trembling. I leaned forward, placing my hand on the table, adding pressure to my words. You thought you could sneak it into the mimosa, didn't you? I asked, my voice soft but firm. I could detect the subtle difference in the taste, even if it was slight, and I wasn't going to let him off the hook. The tension at the table was palpable as Linda's eyes narrowed at James, who was now trying to avoid eye contact. The tension in the room was palpable as James's deceptive attempt unraveled, shifting the dynamics of our already strained evening. The taste hit me immediately, that familiar fiery kick of the hot sauce from Georgia, the one with a hint of lime that I'd discovered at a food fair. It was more appealing to me than the infamous death sauce, a little bit of heat tempered by that subtle citrus note. I confronted James firmly, naming the sauce I had recognized from our shared cooking experiences. Wait, you added that sauce? I asked, making it clear that I'd detected his sneaky addition to the drink. My mother-in-law probably didn't notice due to the mimosa's aroma, or perhaps she mistook the lime for being part of the drink's intended flavor, but I knew exactly what had been done. It was a malicious prank, and it had gone too far. Wait, Dad did that? Stephanie's voice broke the tension, her face a picture of disbelief. James, cornered, muttered a reluctant confession. I intended for Anna to have it. You should switch it with yours. His words were almost desperate now, attempting to justify the malicious act. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me? I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I said firmly, refusing to back down. Why did you think such a stunt was acceptable? James shifted uncomfortably, offering a pathetic excuse. You were putting on weight, and spicy food boosts metabolism, so I thought I'd help. I scoffed, dismissing his flimsy excuse. That's pathetic, I said, disgusted by his attempt to deflect. Trying to act like you're helping me with a prank like this? Embarrassing. Under the pressure of my glare, James shuffled uncomfortably in his chair. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste, I made it for you, he insisted, retreating slightly as he saw I wasn't budging. I stood up, grabbing the cup containing the fiery concoction he'd intended for my mother-in-law and placed it firmly in front of him. After ignoring me for so long and treating me like I'm invisible, did you honestly expect me to drink something you just made out of the blue? Did that not cross your mind? The words came out in a cold, firm challenge. It's childish. Take responsibility. Taste it, since you made it. The tension in the room escalated as I closed the gap between us. The slap of my hand on the table echoed through the room, sending a shockwave of silence across the space. James, likely trying to avoid the confrontation, stood up and stepped back. Amidst the stifling silence, a quiet but firm voice cut through the stillness. It was our daughter, Stephanie. Her words were strained, as though they cost her a great deal of effort to say, but she spoke with undeniable conviction. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and treating her this way, it's like a childish prank. I shouldn't have to say this, but it's so immature and unbearable to watch, Stephanie said, addressing her father directly. She stood, her eyes never leaving his. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her lunch. She's trying. It's not fair to say she's not making an effort. She then turned to face Linda. And you, going along with this? Taking away Mom's food, like the chicken tenders incident? It's like high school drama. It's embarrassing. Linda began to offer a confused excuse, that's not it. I'm just concerned about Stephanie's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel good about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Stephanie, like you, is struggling with weight. Stephanie stood her ground. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It hurts to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she's upset. That's not passion. Mom hasn't had any health issues at her checkups yet. Taking away her food is just plain mean. Linda fell silent, clearly taken aback by Stephanie's words. The room hung heavy with the weight of her argument. Stephanie turned back to her father. Mom sees her gynecologist regularly, and she stays active. Yet, Dad, you just brush her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? Your indifference creates so much tension in this house. Can't you see it? Her voice cracked with emotion, but the words rang out with truth. The room was no longer silent, and for the first time in a long while, the air seemed to shift. The room was thick with tension as Stephanie's words, full of both frustration and love, cut through the air. Even Aunt Kayla from the cookie ads has a little extra weight, and she's the happiest person I know. Ever heard of happy weight? She exclaimed. If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Kayla, wouldn't that be wonderful? I'd love to say, Mom, you've reached your happy weight when I have kids and she's a grandma. Her words weren't just a plea, they were an impassioned reminder of the absurdity of the situation and the need for empathy within our family. That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, Stephanie added, her voice unwavering. Despite the directness of her delivery, her words warmed my heart, like sipping hot milk with cookies on a cold day. It was a painful sight, watching my daughter reprimand her father, but as she continued, her words spoke directly to me. That's part of my dream, so please, let it go, be happy and fulfill my dream, she said. Her plea filled me with warmth, turning the frustration over the weight shaming and the drink incident into something trivial. Tears welled in my eyes. Yes, you're right, I whispered, my vision blurring. Come on, Mom, Stephanie urged gently, patting my back. Let's go. I nodded, wiping my eyes, and retrieved something I'd been holding onto for a while. What is that? Mark asked, startled. After a month of being ignored, I had made up my mind. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I said, handing him the divorce papers, my name written in bold. Mark's voice cracked with panic. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you'd slimmed down like I asked, I would have been happy, he admitted, his voice trembling. But since you didn't, I thought I'd torment you some more. I didn't mean for this. Those who only realize things when it's too late are the immature ones, Stephanie snapped, her words slicing through the tension. Living without her beloved granddaughter isn't a joke, Linda said softly, almost pleading with me. Stephanie, without missing a beat, responded, I don't want to live with people who act like they're in middle school. James, realizing the seriousness of the situation, hesitated, then reluctantly agreed. Okay, I'll taste it, he muttered. He picked up the glass meant for my mother-in-law and gulped it down. The fiery sauce immediately made him choke, his lips turning red. See, I took responsibility, James said, trying to salvage some pride. Stephanie, ever the opportunist, snapped a picture of James and Linda with their lobster-red lips. You both look so ridiculous, she laughed. Then, turning to me, she said, Mom, let's go. I'll follow her lead, I said, standing up and leaving behind the dinner table, now splattered with the fiery sauce and wine cocktail. Mark and Linda, both sporting swollen lips, were left behind. We headed to my parents' house, where I explained everything. Both of them were furious and decided to confront James and Linda. The divorce went through, and in the years that followed, Mark's career floundered, his behavior contributing to a demotion at work. Meanwhile, Linda found herself stuck, living only with Mark. A few years later, I received a call from her, her voice tinged with regret. Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Stephanie were here, she said, reflecting on the 15 years since Stephanie was born. Please come back, I'll stop ignoring you. But I had no intention of returning. Enjoy yourself while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have plenty of physical work to do, my mother teased, smiling. Today, as I walk to work, I breathe in the fresh morning air, my new routine a symbol of my fresh start. My boss drives by and stops, offering me a ride. No thanks, I decline. I'm sticking to my routine. Come on, Anna, get in, he insists, but today's different. I've found someone new, someone who respects me. Unlike my past, we both understand what it's like to go through a divorce, I tell him proudly. Being punctual is important, he says with a smile as he drives. I've never been late before, I protest, puffing up my cheeks. He grins, poking my inflated cheek with a playful gesture. How about you give me the time you saved by riding with me today for a little extra conversation? I laugh, always the conversationalist, I tease, enjoying the easy connection.